Thank you for stopping in at the Brownstone Farm webpage. Today we're going to be talking about different forms of cuts and how to treat them. Things that you need to do, things that you should call a vet for, things that you can handle on your own. These are the things that we use for our cuts or brush burns or whatever the horse has gotten himself into. We're going to start off with, let's just say it is a minor cut or a scrape. You go out and you go, oh, he must have got into something and it's really not done anything but take the hair off. At that point, I would use a Luma Coat on it. Why do we use a Luma Coat? A Luma Coat is basically a Band-Aid that puts over it right away. And it is silver and it does cover. With that said, as anybody knows, a Band-Aid will allow it to heal a lot faster. And I would put that on for 2 or 3 days, depending on how severe or how big that cut was. Please, anytime putting medication on cuts, do not over-medicate. At times we put too much on and it will kill the hair follicles around and it will cause more problems, such as what I call creeping crud. We want to tend to avoid that. Now, we're going to also talk about a wound that's not so bad, but it does go down into that first level of hide. At that point, we can use a Luma Coat. I use that to dry it out if it is wet. Right now, if I have a cut that is really, really dry, it has started to clean up, and I think maybe some hair ought to start to come back in it, I stop using my Luma Coat and I use SWAT. SWAT has a fly spray in it that will take care of the flies and keeping them out of that. Always when your cuts dry, the rule of thumb is to put wet on dry, dry on wet. Your cuts are always healing in the proper direction. Now, we're going to now discuss, I now have a horse come in and man, it needs stitches. Wow, I can't get the bleeding stopped. I can't get a vet out here right away. This is what we would do if we had that problem happen. First thing I would do, try and get it to stop bleeding. Try not to, if you are going to clean it, do not actually flush water directly into the cut itself. You can clean up around it, but do not flush it itself. You will drive any dirt or anything that is in there into that cut deeper. We do not want to do that. If you are trying to handle it yourself, clean it. Any cut we can clean with Novelson. The reason why we use this instead of iodine, and you'll find that we also use that for what I call creeping crud. This does not burn the skin. Very few people are allergic to that, and it works so much better than what iodine does. Iodine will burn the skin, and you don't want the skin burned. You want that skin to be able to start to reproduce itself and to start to knead in. This will allow that to happen, where your iodine will kill those skin cells on the outside. We don't want that to happen. Now, let's say this horse is really, really upset about what's going on, won't let us touch these cuts. You can use a twitch. I try to avoid them at all costs, but you can use one if you have to. If you are worried about using a twitch, you can do what we call a lip chain. A lip chain will go in the side of the halter. It'll go underneath the lip, the top lip, in between the lip and the teeth, and come around and hook to the other side, and you pull down and use pressure. Once again, we use these only if the horse is extremely upset and trying to hurt us while we're trying to help them. Of course, we will make sure that we put gloves on our hands if they're that bad. First thing we're going to do after that is we're going to put one of these pads on to put pressure on to stop the bleeding, and we will then use a vet wrap to pull it tight to help stop bleeding. Let's say that we've gotten it under control. We can then turn that we are doing it ourselves. The bleeding has stopped and it's not as bad as we thought it was. We can actually come back and treat it. Always clip the hair out away from it. Make sure that you don't get hair into the cut itself. Always clip up away, pushing away from it to clean it up out. Use your Novelson to clean it up. After it's cleaned up, come back through, use some form of medication. After you got that on, then put on a pad, wrap it with your cotton and your vet wrap. Always when wrapping, wrap back, and that will be in another video. Also, another thing, let's say that horse has stood out there overnight and has had a cut and we didn't know when it got it. First thing I want you to do is check their temperature. Immediately, that will tell you whether your horse is infected or not. A temperature, they are fighting some form of infection. So with that, at that point, you definitely need to call a vet unless you have something that you can help them out with, like SMZs, doxycycline, something like that. But at that point, it is best to call a vet. As the days go on, it's starting to heal, doing better. We'll use Bute. We could use Banamine. That is a painkiller to help them out. If we have one, once again, let's say we're in a trailer and we're having a problem and I can't get a vet right away, and this horse, we had an accident of some kind, you were out on the trail and have an accident of some kind, when you get them back, we'll use Dimosodon gel that will lightly tranquilize them to allow us to work with them. So when the vet gets there, we're ready for him to take care of whether he needs stitches or what he needs. Another thing, and we really hope this never happens to anybody, but we have a cut that has hit an artery vein and it is blowing blood. I can't get it to stop bleeding. At that point, I will either take Wonder Dust and I will literally take that powder and powder it on it, trying to get it to stop. The very last thing I would do is to grab a whole bunch of cobwebs. At that point, you're only worried about stopping that blood flow, not whether they're going to get an infection in it. Grab a bunch of cobwebs, I mean a big handful of cobwebs, and put it on that cut. The cobwebs will help the blood to start to clot. Then wrap, wait for your vet to get there. Thank you for being in this series. Tune in for Brownstones Farm's next series. Hope this was informative for you. Thank you.